And it worked perfectly.
Just
Look at
send
that. Send it. Hello and welcome everyone into episode 20 of 40K Frontiers. Just send it. With us today, we've got the whole entourage, the whole crew is back for an Uprising recap, basically. So with us today, the wonderful and beautiful Mr. Alex Taus. How you doing, buddy?
Dude, why are you talking to me as I'm busy posting the links? But otherwise, I'm doing great.
Gotta challenge you somehow, right? Do some multitasking on the end. So you've been well,
Dude,
man?
I'm already challenged.
In more ways than one, but that's okay. We accept you for who you are. But the beautiful one, the Korean Alex himself. How you doing, Mr. Korean Alex?
I am doing very good. I am nervously watching the front door for our delivery to get here food. So I'm very invested in what's going on. This is good audio content.
More than fair, more than fair. Got to get the Uber Eats, right?
Absolutely.
But the mad cat himself, the big one, the sexy one, Bishop anyway. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. On this episode of 40K Frontier, so it's going to be a bit of a, I guess, easier show in the sense we all attended Uprising Adelaide. What was only a week ago, which is insane. It feels like it's been forever.
It does.
It was a great experience, a big super major here in Adelaide, South Australia. So we all played Arcs of Omen, 8 games, and we're going to talk about the event itself. I guess, obviously, Korean Alex and Alex Taus traveling overseas to come to their first Australian event and see what it was all about. And we've got some questions also to answer during the episode. So, yeah, but before we get things kicked off and do all the plugs and stuff like that, how about yourself, Ben? Anyway, what's been happening? Have you unpacked your suitcase or your travel case of models yet? Or
I haven't unpacked my models yet. No, I've got a game tomorrow actually, so I do need to do that. But mate, I've been great.
Hands.
Yeah.
Who has? Who's unpacked?
I've unpacked my suitcase. I'll do that as soon as I get home. But
I think Alex is frozen, so I don't know if he has or hasn't.
He has.
Oh, boo.
Oh, it was great. It was a great weekend. Now looking forward to a new season, a new year. So really excited about that.
Cool.
Absolutely. And how about yourself, Korean Alex? So you're back in your home studio in South Korea, but I know you and the wife just made it back, I imagine. So was it yesterday or today? You just made it back?
Yeah, we got back Saturday night, so we went an extra week and went down to Sydney. As is tradition, I am a magnet for weird stuff. Our Airbnb caught fire. That was interesting.
Goodness.
So we had an exciting time.
You're not a real person.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm not real. I'm a child actor.
Are you going to share your weird Airbnb find?
No, that one will stay Patreon only. It's somewhere in Small Blood Gang. No, I'm good. I'm excited for a new season of 40K that I already have 9 games into, so that's nice. Watched a bit of the LVO finals today. Blood Angels won in the distant past, so congratulations to Jack Harpster for winning LVO. He kicked my ass like 2 years ago and probably doesn't remember me, but that happened. And I'm getting ready to. I've got the itch. I gotta update the Custodes list. I got a tournament in February that I'm looking to take a modified version of my Uprising list to. So,
dude, you got to lower your planning standards. It'll improve your gameplay, I'm sure.
It's just don't plan at all. No, it's just a minor. I'm like painting. I think a total of 6 models for a 60-point change in the list for either some Witch Seekers or some Alaris. And then I've started to reorganize my hobby rooms. So I have the case behind me, the tall one, is my 2 tournament armies that I'm actually going to work on. I have Custodes as the first 2 shelves, and then I have Death Guard as the second 2. And then I have if you can see, I'm pointing to a smaller shelf off to my left that's got 2 shelves of Imperial Guard that are getting sorted so I can actually see what I have. And then a small shelf of Imperial Knights, because I've somehow ended up with Knights. You want to add allies in and you just keep adding them, and eventually you have a knight army. So
isn't there a gate or a door there that there's usually a dog or sometimes a dog looming out of to watch you over the
Yeah, there is. Kona and Kelsey are back in the house, but they're very tired. So I'm expecting eventually one dog to show up. Nurgle Matt out there in the chat, I listened to you talk today for the LVO recap, your sultry voice. So welcome in. And now I got to run away because food's about to get here.
Okay, I was gonna ask him a thing, but I guess. All right, that's all we've got. We got Alex in for a bit, and now he's off again.
How about you, Tausi? So, obviously you travel overseas as well. When did you get back into New Zealand?
So just over a week ago. So Tuesday, Wednesday, that midnight crossover time period, and so it's now my Monday. Yeah, so just under a week ago, I should say. Yeah. Yep. And then so I got to get back and then crash, and wake up, watch stat check, slowly bumble around unpacking my suitcase. That was pretty good. And I've got back in. I've done 3 half-ass days of doing some uni. It's good. The Aussie trip was actually so good for just resetting, refreshing. I feel way better about going to work at uni now, which is an awesome, better than expected sort of side consequence of the trip. So yeah, no, it's good. I'm struggling to find
Sometimes a holiday's all you need, mate. A little break gives you a little jolt in the system,
it was,
you know.
And it was the right sort of holidays as well. And I'll go into it a bit more later, but they're hanging out with a bunch of other 40k guys over there, because I was doing my best to socialize, make friends, which hopefully will help out for I guess future travels or arranging games or WTC, things like that. Networking. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's all Warhammer is a networking convention, right? That's all it is. Don't worry about the war dollars between. It's all about networking.
All right. And Sam, when we talked to you, I've been zoned out because you were post links. I'm okay, and not paying attention to the show. How have you been? Did you get back home all right? Questions? Yeah.
It's got back all right. It's been good though. So everything's unpacked, and so now preparing for the move to Queensland. So around me, the hobby space is pretty bare, empty. So did a big trip to store some stuff away. So I've got my one suitcase of models for a game, in-person games tomorrow. Then everything else is all packed up and ready to go. So yeah, just
when do you actually leave, mate? What's the countdown?
So we move into our new place. So where I'm currently staying, it's sort of the southeast coast in Australia. I'm moving up sort of halfway up north. So it's a 13-hour drive moving up to Brisbane. So I start leaving on Saturday. So we'll stop halfway along and then do the rest of the drive on Sunday. So yeah, nice long trip. It's never fun moving house for anyone who hasn't experienced it, but it's a worthwhile one. So exciting times ahead.
But hey, I hear there's some pretty good 40k gamers up in Brisbane.
I don't know. Are they?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. Maybe they're not good. Maybe they're just fast.
100%.
All right, Sam. Is this the point in time where you do the plugs and things? Is that where we're at in the show?
Sounds more than reasonable. So for us, we're part of the Best in Tabletop Network, and if you'd like to support the network, you can join in one of two ways. So A is a Patreon, so patreon.com/Best in Tabletop. You can join the Best in Tabletop Discord, where we discuss lists, have a TTS league that's actually starting up here in the next couple of days. Just get some Arcs of Omen testing, get some people practicing, and have fantasy football league and whatever you like. That's a great community and great conversations to be had there. Alternatively, there's a YouTube members area, so you can subscribe there for $10 a month and get some behind the scenes content. So chasing the narrative. There's going to be a bunch of bit reps, so those Best in Tabletop battle reports, which are 30 minutes, 45 minutes, discussing games and tactics and stuff like that. And this past weekend, I know Colin and the crew did a bunch of new Arcs of Omen testing, so I'm sure there'll be a bunch behind the scenes there. And if you like the sound of both, you can do both. So there's those options for getting the Discord and the YouTube members area. And last but not least, there's Best in Tabletop /store. So we have merchandise there, from headbands to T-shirts to whatever merchandise is available, coffee mugs. If you can think of it to an extent,
singlets,
it's there.
Ideal for the Australian tournament goer, right, Sam?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it is a great place, and it helps support the network and helps support us content creators. So any help would be greatly appreciated.
And if you're not sure about any of that, or more importantly, if you're not and you end up listening to this, subscribe please on YouTube, because then you can do the things like the super chats and the YouTube power level unlocks when you hit 1,000 subscribers. So even if you're listening to this on a podcast thing, please, if you can go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button and then ignore the notifications even and wait for podcasts. That's still helpful, because algorithm. Yeah. All right, that's my bit.
Fantastic. So, yeah, so obviously we touched on the very start of the show, but this episode's basically recapping Uprising Adelaide. So, how about yourself, Mr. Benny Way? So, give us context, just a quick 2-minute synopsis about what Uprising Adelaide is, like what the event was about, and go from there.
This year, so basically it's like the LVO equivalent for Australia. It's the end of season, big Royal Rumble, if you like.
But we actually use like relevant rules, right, Ben?
Yeah, that's right. We're not actually in the future. We're just in the present. So basically, if this year was the biggest ever tournament in general in Australia, I think it was, or maybe short by 10 or so people for the biggest tournament ever, but it's definitely the biggest competitive one. So we had about, I think it was 232 players from all around Australia, and one from Korea / America.
Hey now, there were 4 of us from New Zealand. Yeah, stay in your lane.
That's right. Yeah. So and they all came over to have a go at the end of season ITC. It was held in Adelaide, which is like right in the centre at the bottom of Australia. It's quite a small city. It's quite a nice little city. I've never been there before. It's my first year going there. But yes, it usually has all the big names. I think it's his 4th year running now. We've had Solly win it, and then Liam Hackett win it twice. So the next year will be his 4th, I think. Maybe it's gone for 1 year before that, but I can't remember if it has. But yeah, so Liam Hackett won it again. So there was 232 players. It was in a massive like gymnasium, really well air conditioned, which was good because it was some pretty hot days. And it was 8 rounds, there's not many 8-round events in Australia at this stage. So that's the only one. So it's the Australian equivalent of a super major. So
I think it was a super major,
very
right?
exciting. Yeah, it is a super major, but like we literally don't have any other events like that. There is rumours that will change this year potentially, but Australia, when we tend to get big events, we tend to end up making them team events. That's what happens over here. So that's as good as it is. There's all the crew there. I don't know if anyone can tune in and see us on YouTube or see the screen. They'll see there's all 4 of us. This is a great angle, whoever took this photo, because if they took it from my height, these guys are actually huge. And I'm short by, I think I'm like the shortest by at least 7 inches there, maybe even 6 inches.
Well, the funny bit about that whole thing is I look at like a normal height in that photo. I'm 6'2". For reference,
whoever took it was taller than everyone. It was brilliant. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, fun time was had by all. First event, let alone of its size, running the Arcs of Omen. So that was really interesting to see what the Australian guys could come up with and what they were willing to pivot to really quick. And there was definitely some interesting picks. A lot of things went to plan, like what people expected. A lot of things didn't. But I think what's refreshing is the fact that it's looking like that a lot of factions have a good shot at rocking the top. Or there was a good mixture of factions in that top 16. I should probably say how Adelaide.
It's worth shouting out the format,
works.
right, Ben?
Yeah. So basically, it's you play 3 rounds on the Saturday, Sunday, and then you go to 2 rounds on the Monday. The first 6 rounds is like qualifying for the pod system, which gets split up. You play a normal 6-round major. By the time you get to the end of that, you get podded up into pods of 4. The whole event did. I know they're looking to revise that in the future, but the whole event gets split up into pods of 4, and then you basically duke it out to get into your top of your pod. So there's some great positives to this. It gave them the opportunity, the TOs, to give prize support to the people who won the pods, therefore splitting prize support not just from the top section or the bottom section, if you like, or paint, managing to spread some prize support throughout the event, which I think is pretty amazing.
So they're
on the flip side of that, it does
their
mean
sale
that,
point. their sale point was every other table is competing for a prize, which is true, or like to make it in slightly more reasonable to like keep track of. 1 in 4 people will like win something for like winning their pod. Yeah, and then slightly more because I think there's something for second and third in the top pod as well. Yeah.
But on the downside of that, it does mean that you for some people it can be like, what am I playing for? At that stage, people still want that randomness of being able to flip through. There's a few people who had actually played each other previously before, but regardless, it was still great fun, and the pods were brilliant, and it actually came up in a lot of people's goals. I spoke to Adam. I remember he put a Facebook post asking what people's goals were for the event, and most people put winning their pod as their goal. So that's pretty interesting. So and I think everyone really enjoyed themselves. So it gets pretty sweaty. So it's really important to remember that sometimes some 6 and 2s are more valuable than other 6 and 2s, and stuff like that is really worth looking at. So really, it's all about the positioning. It's quite a unique way to do it, and it was good fun. So
yeah, and so another couple things is so that also another thing they found that was good about it is there were really, really low rates of drops with the pods because everyone's still competing for something all the way to the end. I don't know how much of that is like Australia and this being like the event that it is, and it's like just in the middle of like an Australian city, not Vegas. So like whoops, we went too hard on the town, or like whatever happened in Vegas happened. There's less of that to cause drops compared to LVO. And whatever else, but yeah, so there were very few drops. And on the whole 6 and 2 thing, the way that like it splits out is that so if you've like the podding means that there were masses of 5 and 1 players sort of thing, and there was a big spread based off battle points as to how high you end up placing and then getting put into pods. And so there'll be people that went so people would have gone 5-1 then lost another 2. But still placed much higher than people going, whatever else. Just to go on that point one more time.
Yeah, fantastic. So Korean Alex, so this was your first time, obviously, traveling to Australia for an event. How would you describe sort of the terrain, and how would you describe the overall experience of the event?
Yeah, so terrain-wise, trying to find a good frame of reference. Denser than Frontline. In general, it was denser terrain than Frontline, I thought, in my experience. Not as dense as I feel like GW is, where you can't get good sight lines. So generally, on every table, there was a position you could be in to shoot from one end to the other. If you were playing on day 1 terrain, there was a lot of positions you could sit in to shoot from one end to the other. They fixed that later. They admitted after day 1, there might have been too many angles to shoot stuff. So they did adjust terrain for day 2 and day 3. But
do we remember specifics about what they adjusted? I thought it was just they took out the Dawn of War mission, but I don't remember. Like I didn't.
I don't remember exactly.
Disclaimer:
they just repositioned a fair few things. I think that's all they did. Like on certain tables, if you notice, the tables were in groups. So like some groups, when you played up, like I played all around the hall. So I noticed that there was groups of tables, like our pod tables were different than the rest of the tables. So I think it just depended on where there was, but also obviously we all know what Dawn of War like. Dawn of War feels like it needs another 4 bits of terrain on it, even though there's nowhere to put said terrain, so like because of angles. So I think that's why they just removed that, which takes off honestly a bulk of the issues, and then they just repositioned a few things. I still definitely got a couple of dodgy tables on day 2 as well, but my pod was fine. Do you know what I mean? So
I think I had one table that I can think of that was kind of a shooting gallery one. My game 2, I ended up into Iron Hands, a tank list, and we had kind of a duel back and forth, and there wasn't a lot of terrain that mattered in that. That's an exception, I guess. And then I had one game that was Hammer and Anvil, where there were 2 really big sight lines down either side of the table. But they had adjusted terrain enough that I could terrain hop up the board, and it wasn't as much of an issue. If we're going through here, there's be photos going through on the screen showing examples of some of the terrain and what the boards look like. But in general, I thought the terrain was, I thought generally, coming from a list that usually ignores terrain because I'm fly and have a lot of long range shooting, I thought the terrain was fine. Traveling to Australia for it, that was a lot of fun. I have been stopped let me think, 3 of the 4 airport security checkpoints I went through stopped me for my 40K army. So that's always a good sign. It was fun to watch the X-ray go through and see bricks of resin with pegs with magnets on them, and to watch every security guard go, yeah, we're going to need to see in that box. But other than that, it was pretty easy to get down there. It was a easy travel, and terrain I thought was fine.
Yeah, just to like go a bit of a thing as well. So there was a bunch, but one of the things that sometimes could be an issue is that sometimes it was in the wrong place. Your home objective was, as far as I'm aware, pretty much always safe. You could hide on it. But then sort of say on the classic 5 objective, like the center one, you're on corners and there's the 2 sort of neutral-ish objectives. Those 2 neutral ones, say for like death and zeal conversion and the bomber mission, those 3, your non-home objective ones, we usually had area terrain, but not obscuring to interact with next to it or behind it. And then the mid-board one would have like a couple of pieces sort of next to it, so you could maybe stage just behind it or nearby, but not actually be on it safely, as a broad rundown.
Yeah, that's how I've described it to people. Was each side had a safe objective, an objective that you could not safe, but it was a little more protected, and then a very exposed objective, and that was those 3. So you always had to have a plan to hold something on an objective. You needed to put something there that could survive return fire or an assault, because it was not safe. It was going to be interacted with.
But yeah, it feels like we've probably hammered this point fairly well, and things will come up as we go on in discussion. Yeah. So does someone want to move us on? Sam, you got something to add?
Yeah, so I guess maybe for yourself, Taos and Korean Alex, like, how did you find the event as a whole? Like, was it more like, obviously, other than some people yelling out yabbies for whatever reason sometimes?
Yeah.
What did you find the atmosphere and the culture like? Was it much more calm? Was it much more tense than you expected? Like, how did you find
Alex,
it? Maybe you go.
I feel like you've got a quick comparison to go off, and then I can, assuming you remember the thing that I'm thinking of, and then I'll go a bit more.
Sure. Yeah. My comparison for those who played in the United States, one of the events that I played out a couple times and I absolutely love and would attend again if I could, it's just not, schedule isn't going to line up for a little bit, was the Alamo GT in San Antonio, Texas. Very similar vibe. Everyone is there to compete, but everyone's also there to have a good time. There's not like, it's healthy competition, and enough. The Yabby Hunters, Team Yabby is basically Team Texas with funny accents. That's really where we're at. But otherwise, it was an incredibly friendly event. As an aside, and this is one of my barometers now, is my wife travels with me a lot to events, just because we'll go on a vacation afterwards or we'll go do something. But she usually will come hang out for a day or 2 at the event and just kind of walk around, see what's going on. The Uprising, both of the Uprising team and the other players at Uprising were incredibly welcoming, incredibly nice. And that's kind of my secret barometer for events is, does my wife enjoy being in the room? And she did. So 10 out of 10, great event, planning on attending next year.
That's pretty good. Oh yeah, and another like cheeky shout out as well is because it is warm in Aussie. Funny that. And so the main hall, I heard the side room got a bit warm on day 1, but then they sorted that out, got the aircon going, and okay.
Holy hell, it was hot day 1.
Right. Anyway, so apparently, if you got stitched up and put in the side room day 1, it was hot, unlucky. But then they sorted it out. At least I was in there day 3, and it was good then. The main hall though was air-conned, so as a Kiwi coming from not boiling hot Australia land, was fine with temperature in the hall. I don't know how Alex dealt coming from, because it's winter in Korea, right? Like there was snow on one of the days when you were sending the dog pictures from them in their homestay. Is that right?
Yeah, no, it was snowing when I left Korea. So there was a temperature shock. I changed hemispheres to attend this. So my interpretation of if it was too warm or cold should be thrown out because I have no idea what's going on after.
Did you survive in the venue though, other than your day one suffering?
Venue was fine. Fine. I think it got a little warm end of day one. I liked that they had those garage doors open in there. I thought that made a nice breeze, but that's like a really minor thing. I was also dehydrated day one because I wasn't drinking enough water, so that probably played into it.
Cool.
It was lucky. It could have been a lot hotter. It could have been a lot hotter. Like it was hot, but it wasn't too bad. Like
it was pleasant.
I expected it to be worse. I expected it to be way hotter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and so another shout out is the TOs had and announced vocally at like the start of the event, they had deodorant up at the front, like spray cans if it was a problem. And I don't know about you guys, I didn't notice any gamer stank the whole weekend basically, so that was pretty cool. But maybe I got a bit lucky there
the
as
small
well.
room
had
had an odor issue, and they walked in and sprayed everyone down immediately.
Cool. So yeah, that's yeah. Do I need to go on more about my findings of the event, Sam? Are we still on that question?
Obviously, we've made a bunch of fun about the Kiwi terrain and stuff like that, and sometimes your Kiwi events. But like, how did you find like the atmosphere of people? Like, obviously, come over, you met a bunch of new people. I know you gladly talked about how you met some of the normal blokes. I know you loved that whole experience. You got your Hollywood diva.
You were fangirling hard.
Yeah,
I was like, when you were sending photos, I was like, "Are you even invited, man? Like, or are we just like gate crash? Like, dung, hey man, I'm here to hang out."
No, okay. So I was very much invited. I was invited by Denise, who was absolutely off his face, but I was invited. All right, and I was welcomed. It was fine. No, yeah. So okay. So I guess hey.
You got to get when they're most vulnerable when they've had a few.
Okay. So to explain for people, basically, so I got into Adelaide on Thursday, and I had been chatting with some of the normal blokes for reasons I can't specifically remember. But anyway, at some point, I get a message from an absolutely smashed Denise to say, "Hey, come over." I reply with something like, "Don't threaten me with a good time," and I get sent the address for the Airbnb. I'm like, yeah, all right. And so I ended up spending sort of the Thursday evening and then like most of the Friday before Uprising, because Uprising was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, with the like 15 to 25 strong Queensland contingent of the Normal Side Bloke Alliance, because there is the Normal Blokes, which is a crowd, and they do a podcast featuring Liam Hackett, who won the thing, and the Northside Alliance, who I think they run tournaments up there. And yeah, so those guys were making a day of it. And I sort of got my way in there, made friends, and that was cool. Have I addressed the thing you were making fun of me for now, Ben? Are we good?
Yeah, no, I know how it all went. Like, I know how it all panned out. I was content with just saying that, and then
yeah, that's fair. Okay, so I took the bait. We're good. But as far as the actual event, event was great. So like I had a great run of opponents, which I was fortunate for, but I think that was fairly common. There was not too much in the way that I heard of from various different people about having bad or difficult opponents or any like, the horror story tournament interactions. It was great. So good run of opponents all the way through. It was a good atmosphere. People are friendly at lunch. Yada yada. They had food trucks.
So you did pretty well. You did pretty well, right? You did pretty well. Like, so you ended up 7th, didn't you? And the whole thing. Yeah. So why don't you tell us about like why you chose? Because you've got a pretty big contingent of custodes, right? Why you chose to take your Chaos Knights instead of your custodes beforehand?
Yeah, okay. So I had been on Chaos Knights since halfway through last year because we thought that was the best option I had for team stuff. And yeah, so we thought that was my best option. Teams, and then I've been playing it, felt like they were fairly strong. And then at some point I made a meme to sort of explain like why I thought Chaos Knights were going from the like LVO meta, let's call it, to Arcs of Omen, because so Ruthless Tyranny, they're already like really good Stranglehold, but you can get 4 points a turn. That went to you can get 5 points a turn. So there was like it was not uncommon for me to get like 5, 5, 3, 3 and be done or whatever by turn 4. Like one of the games, I'm pretty sure I scored 25 points on it, that sort of thing. Their action secondary changed as well, so it went from 3 to 4 points a turn. You can do it 4 times max, so now you can max it rather than capping at 12. All of the baseline, if you kill characters with War Dogs for Assassinate or score Grind Them Down or Behind Enemy Lines, so Behind Enemy Lines doesn't really come into it, and I think Grind Them Down's a bait with all War Dogs as well. But anyway, the secondaries can give you CP. Armor of Contempt going away is great for your like mass AP2 shooting, or at least in the way I run it. And the last one was you don't get CP taxed for taking all War Dogs, which I think is the best way to do Chaos Knights, because I'm not a fan of getting shot without being able to shoot someone back by having a Titanic Knight. So that's like roughly the things that had me on Chaos Knights. And like I was well practiced, and it was easy for me to transport because I'd already made a system to transport them. So all of those factors, I was on Chaos Knights. And I'm definitely happy with the choice because it felt like I had played into almost anything. One of the matchups that I knew was the worst before this was the that was prominent in the meta was the Emperor's Chosen Terminator brick, and previously the Levy Warrior brick, stuff that has like transhuman and additional defensive mechanics. Like the Warriors have the -1 damage, 5 up feel no pain, like that combo that makes them really annoying to try and punch through in the invul. The Terminators of being like 0 up save and cover to shooting, and the trans hitman, those things all just suck to try and hit with like Chaos Knights. So the like a tech piece guy that I have on my list would be the Blood Shield Carnivore. This guy can get upwards of 8 attacks, hitting on 2s at strength 12, neg 4, d3 plus 3, or there's neg 5 flat 3, and ignoring invulns twice per game. That guy's sort of usually a problem solver for big bricks like that, and transhuman is one of the mechanics that sucks, along with a few others. So that's a really long-winded way of saying the things that I was most worried about, I think, were gone. Dark Angels Terminators do exist, and I ran into them, which I'll go into a bit later, and that's a bit of a problem, but you can work around it slightly more. Sorry, Ben.
No, that's great. That's all great to hear. So why don't you talk about your day one, and then we'll hop over to Alex and Sam. And
yeah, sounds great.
Before we get too into it, I'll do a little synopsis of my time at the event. But let's why don't we?
You do yours first, Ben, quickly. Just
righto. So basically, like on the last cast, I said to you, I said everyone asked me how I was feeling going in. I said I haven't really played enough in the last 3 months to have any competitive expectations, and that's kind of what happened basically at the event. I probably hit a few unlucky tables, but still scored pretty high and kept everything pretty close. But I just was lacking a lot of match fitness really, and I think but I made sure I took sisters so I had like less expectations of the event going in, and just enjoyed myself, and that I did very much so. It was an amazing weekend. All my opponents were amazing, and great sports, great guys. It was just fantastic. So, that's why for this, the means of this is easy if we focus on these 3 guys. I'm terrible at recollecting my games. If I don't write it down, then you'll just be a jumbled, blabbery mess. So you're better off not hearing my kind of recap of my events anyway, because it's all over the shop. So
are we going to spill the beans, Ben, on how you did first 2 days and then how you went in your pod, just as the last recap? Do you want to go into that?
Oh yeah, so I went day one I was 2-1, and then I went 0-3 day two, and then I drew and lost in my pod. So yeah, and they're all, I think, like most of my losses within 8 points as well. So
Yeah.
you know, I was just, you know, it's just like I wasn't, you know, I had no preparation going, and I hadn't played for a while. So yeah, what can I say? So, and yeah, I took a list which was just, you know, just fun, really. So
Just
it was
send
good.
it, yeah.
Yeah. Basically,
Yeah.
it could move real quick, and it was actually a relatively fast distance list which was a bit different. So yeah, it was good fun.
Cool.
So right, okay.
So my day one.
Tell us about your day one.
Right. And I might. Oh, I'll see if I can find my actual like score sheets, then I can like shout out my opponents. So if anyone's watching, I'm going to be rummaging through, see if I can find stuff. But yeah, so my first round was against another Chaos Knights player. So you get the mirror off the bat, which with Chaos Knights is always like, because Knights mirrors, you can sometimes make all the right calls and like shit can go sideways.
Sure.
Which slightly happened my turn one, which I'll go into, but so they were lovely painted, like Night Lord themed knights that were entered in like to the best display. People were coming past and saying like, yeah, I think you guys will get battle ready. Yeah, and so he had a combination. He had like a couple of the double autocannon guys, a couple of double gun, a couple gun claw, a couple double melee, I think, of the little knights. He had one big knight that was full melee, the Rampager. That guy had the no rerolls against him can become trans hitman, and then he had the a guy with the big I think he had the Diamonus, which is the 3-shot like really bad news for Knight's gun if it shoots you, because it's like 6 plus d6 damage. I don't remember, it didn't shoot, spoilers. And that had the Feel No Pain that 6 up can become 5 up if he procs his favor, i.e. if he kills one of my guys. So big bonus on my end, I went first. I saw an opportunity to send one carnivore in, punch his carnivore, move block the Rampager, and then I had a brigand behind that, which is my Melter Gatling guy. He baited the rotate on the double melee knight, who I didn't want to shoot because I wanted to move block him. Shoot the other knight did. That worked out. My carnivore charging in, wasn't feeling it, had to re-roll his 5-inch charge. Then he runs in, misses with 3 of his 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounds twice on 3s, doesn't kill the guy, dies in return. Good job. So I was a bit spooked, but then to quickly finish up, basically having more little knights and going first helped me win out, where like a little knight will trade up for about half a big knight, and you get 3 little knights per big knight. It worked out. Yeah, that was game one.
You're almost just out attrition in them, really, with your own.
Yeah, big time. That's
so, yeah.
So that's going into I think a fair bit of detail. He was a great sport. We worked out later that I missed a couple of I denied him some primary by contesting an objective. We were like, whoopsies, that was meant to be sticky based off the mission rules. Went back and saw him later. That's fine. Went back and saw him again later, because it turns out Ruthless Tyranny, the Chaos Knight secondary, if you hit the mirror, it requires knights to be controlled by objectives to be controlled by Chaos Knights and be within dread range. It doesn't specify friendly, so that is like the autoist of auto 15s in the mirror, which is really funny. But yeah, no. So I kept in touch with him throughout the event, being like, "Oh, whoops, you should have got a few more points. Oh, whoops again." But no, he was great. Right, yeah. So Michael Laws, I believe I found my score sheets. Was my opponent. Shout out to him.
Yeah, and on screen for people watching the video, they've got the photo of the Night Lord's army. It's a beautiful army.
Yeah. So then round 2, I played another Michael. Mike, I don't remember his last name. Sorry, it had a J somewhere unexpected.
Oh, it's Mientes. That's Mientes.
Yeah,
yeah. He's one of the normal players as well. So
is he? Okay, yeah. He's great.
So. I think so.
I think he has a separate orange shirt. Anyway, we've chatted a bit since on Facebook and stuff. He was great. So he had an Eldari Swift Strikes Ignore Cover list, I think, with basically his things I had to be scared of was 1 unit of D cannons. Then he had like 2 units of Howling Banshees, which can do a bit of damage to knights, a unit of Striking Scorpions, and otherwise not much. I was like, I sat there thinking for way longer than I should. This guy I heard is reasonable. Making sure I should respect him. Like, no. Okay, ruthless tyranny, assassinate, abhor the witch. I'm going to kill all the everythings, which is approximately what happened. And so it was a really bad matchup and mission for him. And then like the Dyson gameplay didn't help. He was like, oh, to roll off to see who go first, we both rolled ones, then we both rolled threes, then we both rolled fives. So that was like a fun thing at the start. But yeah, I ended up, then he rolled a 3 and I got a 4. So I went first. Big help, or really bad for him. Helps me a bit. I run up. There was an angle where I picked, he had some Shining Spears. I'd got an angle, picked it up with the autocannon ones to like really hammer things home. And then later, I managed to use the House Herpetrax AoE do some mortal stratagem. I rolled a 3 for one of his jetbike farseers, which means I do D3 mortal wounds. Rolled a 6 and then did a 3 on the D3 as opposed to 1 while clipping his other characters. Then they hop some stuff out, shoots a knight. I auto explode it to wound Baharoth. Warp spiders then shoot that knight that like clipped all his characters. That naturally explodes. So another 6 rolled. Kills, does the last 3 wounds to his 2-unit Warlock Conclave, does the last 3 wounds to that jet biker, kills 3 of the warp spiders that killed it. It's just like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for him. I went to see the TO, see if they had like any pity prize sort of things, but no. So it was good. But then at the end, we're like, cool, he's just got like a pile of rangers in my backfield scoring like behind enemy lines and charging onto my home objective and be like, all right, we're just sitting here rolling like 4 turns of ranger shooting to work out if they can kill my last knight for bring it down, because otherwise the game was set. So he was great. We had a great laugh. He was a great sport despite having horrible luck. Yeah. So yeah. And then round 3, I played a guy, James Beale of the Yabby Hunters. So I guess quickly, the Yabby Hunters are a crowd who have cropped up, I think, in South Australia, and they are pretty funny. I've been instructed that and sent some videos that we should shout them out at some point, because they've hired like the real life Peter Griffin guy and someone else to do some voices. Anyway, James was great. He was on an Ultramarines Bobby G gunline with suppressors. I went second in that. I got shot a bit. It didn't hurt as much as I expected. I shot back. It also did a bit less than I expected, but more than needed. And there was a bit of back and forth of shooting. The Chaos Knights were broadly winning the attrition. And then there was a key point where he charged in with his Redemptor and Bobby G into a couple of things. The Redemptor swung first. That let me interrupt against Bobby G. I've got 5 attacks, hit 4. I wound like 4 times with the 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. And then Bobby's just like, no, we're not really feeling it today, Chief, and passes 1 of the 4 saves. So quite helpful for me. And sort of we went from there. He stood up and then died to the first thing that shot him again. But no, James was a great sport. Yeah, day 1.
Boom, and 3-0, right? 3-0 after day 1?
Yeah. So 3-0, and I was scoring pretty well on all of them. Like I got 100 against the Chaos Knights because I managed to max Storm thanks to the new secondary. Tyranny's automatic, and Bring It Down gives another good secondary for Chaos Knights. And the other 2, I took like no prisoners assassinate against the Ultramarines. Scored the most I could given what he had. And yeah, took assassinate abhor for like 13 and 11 respectively into the Eldar. And that was the game that I scored like a 25 on Ruthless Tyranny. Obviously capped down to a 15. So yeah, day 1 went well, and I was sitting somewhere in like the top 12-ish based off battle points. So yeah, definitely happy.
Well done.
Yeah. So who wants to go next on their day 1?
How about you, Korean Alex? So first Australian event, how did day 1 go for you, buddy?
Day 1, it started off a little rough, but it went well. So running through my list real quick, what I finalized on, I was on Custodes bikes, and I was a special snowflake and didn't take Trajan. I was only one of a couple people who didn't do that. Spoiler alert, that's getting fixed. I missed Trajan. It didn't end up impacting the event not having him, but it would have made some games easier, if that makes sense. So my list was a bike captain. It was the normal Emperor's Chosen bike captain with extra attacks on killing units, 5 Feel No Pain. He had a missile launcher. He had Castellan's Mark for redeploys. This is the standard. I had a unit of Custodian Guard, 2 shields, and a spear. I had 2 single Alaris Terminators with spears and knives. I had a Alaris Banner guy, which is a Terminator banner. He had
Watch those wrist rockets.
Yeah, exactly. He had Obliteratum, which never came up, but was really funny. So he has basically, lore-wise, he shoots a black hole at you, but it is a strength 10, assault 1, 18-inch range, strength 10, -4, D3 + 3 damage. So it is a better version of a bike missile. All the bikes in this list had missiles, and I had him, and then I had 3 tanks. I had 17 D3 + 3 damage shots in the list. That was very helpful. So he had that. He had a Warlord trait for counting as 4 models and have it denied a +1. I'm never leaving home without that anymore. So that was, I had those, the 2 single Alaris and him. I had a unit of Witch Seekers. So if you're a Custodes player and you don't know who these are, you should, because they're really good. They're a 5 Sisters of Silence unit. It's a 5-girl unit in fast attack. And they have flamers. They're strength 4, -1, 1 damage. They move 7. They're assault D6. They're flamers. That's fine.
And they have a pregame move of 6-inch.
They have a pregame move. No, it is a 6-inch pregame move for some reason. It is 1 inch lower than their normal movement. This is fine. Because that 6-inch move lets you redeploy them as well. So now my list has 3 redeploys in it because I get to move the Witch Seekers as a scout move later. And then I had 3 units of bikes. Everybody had missiles. Everybody had knives. And I had 3 Caladius tanks with the heavy blaze cannons, which has 2 profiles. Strength 9, 2 shots, strength 9 -4, D3 + 3 damage, reroll to wound against vehicles. And then a scatter shot version that was 8 shots at 7 -2, 1 damage. My entire list is Emperor's Chosen, which gives me gives me a couple things that are very important. 1, a fort Feel No Pain against mortal wounds barely ever came up. Used to be mandatory. I don't think it is anymore. The other one is they get the ability to change shield hosts for free, and that is no longer capped. So that is an unlimited use of fallback and charge. That is an unlimited use of 6-inch heroic on infantry, but it really is just fallback and charge.
And to clarify it, when you say for free, you mean like with a stratagem in the command phase?
With a stratagem, yes.
Yeah.
It is a 1 CP strat, but it used to be capped at once per game. It is no longer capped there. That's effing phenomenal. It was great. It also gives them a free hit or wound reroll per shooting activation. Now look back at those Caladius that rerolled wound against vehicles, and they hit on 2s. So a lot of times I was hitting and wounding with both. They were doing good. Now you understand what I'm taking. The list lacks infantry on the ground, which is something I'm going to fix. So it struggled with a couple secondaries, and that was something I would have figured out in testing had I done any. I had 1 practice game into this, into guard, into new guard, optimized guard. So that was it. That's all.
Hey, how much guard did you face there, Alex?
I faced 1 and did about as well as I expected into it.
Okay.
So my game 1 was again, I can pronounce his name on here, but it was Snowy from the Northern Territory. He was phenomenal. As an aside, something we haven't covered, Uprising had a bounty board.
Yeah.
It was the top ranked player from each region, which included myself, the Team Australia coaches, Liam Hackett, and then a couple other people, right?
Yeah, Liam's bounty's unclaimed for 2 years now running.
Yeah, but there were prizes for beating the best person from that territory. That's the big one.
We've
Snowy and
done under 40k, put one on Mr. Sam Lemon too.
So there were a few bounties. So I played in a Snowy. Snowy was running Emperors, or was running Custodes, so it was a mirror match. But he was running Shadowkeepers. Shadowkeepers with a lot of Sagittarium. Absolutely, my wife was very much enjoying local beers.
Quit reading chat.
I can't. He keeps throwing it up. I'm like a goldfish. I just jump on it. So he was running Sagittarium. It was Shadowkeepers, which for those who don't know, reroll wound against characters, not that big a deal into me because I only have 2. -1 attack. That probably lost me a game. I'm not practiced. So I screwed this up. It was, I forget what mission 1 was, but it was corners with 3 objectives in the center.
Mission
Death and
32.
Zeal.
Mission 32. So he throws stuff. He gets first, throws stuff on the center objective, stages behind the building. We had a picture of that up earlier. I decide that I'm faster than him, and I completely forget that I have guns. And I dive the unit that he puts on the center objective. Because I'm -1 attack, and it's the bikes doing that, they go from 12 attacks to 9 attacks. He transhumans. I do not kill the center unit, which means my bikes are now stuck there, staring down the barrel of Trajan. And his unit of sword and board guys that didn't take any casualties, and the Sagittarium that are there that can run in. They all have knives. They can run in and stab.
Trajan applies Watcher's Act directly to problem. Problem goes away.
It did. I lost 550 points turn 2, top of turn 2. That lost me the game. I no longer had the mobility to do anything. So we played a fun little scrum of I threw a Lars into his backfield to score behind enemy lines. I tried to clear stuff out, but I was playing a 1,500 point list into ostensibly a 2,000 point list. It just didn't go well. Snowy and I talked about it later. If I had put some wrinkles into my brain, I would have realized that I outshoot him super hard, not even close. So if I sat back and shot him for a turn or 2 and then dove, that is a very different game. This is an important lesson I learned, that I can just shoot stuff. So we move on to game 2. This was into Liam McCauley. He was running a Iron Hands tank list. I think this is going to be something that's going to show up a lot. It was on a Dawn of War deployment. Need to say,
Tide of Conviction.
Tide of Conviction. It was a Dawn of War deployment. I'm going to be honest, the mission in here doesn't matter. He's running a couple of the Gladiator tanks, the anti-tank ones, the ones with las cannons and multi-meltas. He blows up a Caladius, turn 1 in the middle of my army. Does a ton of mortal wounds to me. That was the only time 4-up mortal wound dodge ever comes up. I proceed to kill pretty much his entire army. He had 2 Gladiators. Those died when exposed. He had some Marines in a corner. Bike Captain cleared those. He had Dreadnoughts that were dropping to all the missile shots going into him because he had vehicles, and that's what my list is designed to kill. As I told people going in, my idea was to run into guard and run over it because I could kill the tanks and kill the infantry. So I lost to Caladius. I think I eventually lost a bike unit. It was not a lot of casualties. He had some tanks. He had a bike chaplain and some infantry. The only thing that survived in that game was the bike chaplain. It was a bit of a mess match. Great player. Had a great time playing him. We go into game 3. I went to Shane Miller, who is running Solar Watch. He was running the Custodes Transport, the Coronis Grav Carrier.
What a king!
It was huge. It was this big.
Did you shoot it through walls?
Absolutely, I did. I blew it up turn 1. He was running a big block of Venatari, a small unit of Venatari. So that's the jump pack Custodes units. And then he pushed forward on me. I learned that I just outshoot Custodes, blew up the Coronis turn 1, killed most of his stuff, pretty much tabled him by turn 5. I think he had 2 models left. He shot and killed something, but I was faster than him and I outshot him. And then I could surgically pick up units when I needed to. So he was a great opponent, lovely guy. But it was a hammer and anvil deployment, and I could sit farther back than he can get to me and just shoot my way out. So that was my day 1. I went 2-1.
Did he put the Venatari in the tank to like move
Absolutely he did.
Yes! What a champion!
And one of them tripped and died on the way out. So
yeah, man.
It was free kills.
That's awesome.
Oh, fantastic. Well, very good day 1. For myself, so I played Druk. I played some, I can't believe it's not Harlequins, basically. So it was like 8 Venoms, a Raider, and just a bunch of MSU nonsense. Day 1, so I played against Ultramarines and Liam Fletcher. So he was a local to South Australia, had a recent recruit of the Yabby Hunters. So he was drinking beers at 9 o'clock in the morning. So a good start. So it was played at Ultramarines list. So very similar to your opponent, Taos, Ultramarines with Gilliman. So first time playing against Gilliman. First time playing against Gilliman, so it was fun. It was a good win for me, though. He sort of pushed a bit too early, and then I was able to capitalize and just go into them. He hadn't played against Drukaria before, so it was sort of a bit of a learning lesson. And wow, Drukhari go fast. And so
Drukhari still kill Marines real good as well, right? Like this is back, like Marines got more stuff, they shoot harder, but like back when peak Drukhari was like just dealing with Marines, it's still like back to that level sort of thing, right? Of like, yeah.
Yeah, it was brutal. They do bad things to Marines.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a great game. Liam was an absolute gent to the opponent. So won the first game, so it was a good win. And then went into New South Wales local, so someone close to Benny. So Kirby, he goes by. So he's a good tower player. He's a really well-known community, like a really great opponent. Beautiful army as well. Played Dornor, and I knew it was going to be a rough mission. Just the way the terrain was laid out. So it was literally my home field objective was protected by like an inverse S of containers. And the way things were with the hammerheads and crisis suits, I'm like, well, I can't really protect anything behind my home field objective, and I want my CP, so we're going to hope for the best. And thankfully, I went first, and I sort of got the upper hand, but unfortunately, I clocked out myself, so I expended way too much time. And then the last two turns, he was able to sort of run around and score points late. But it was a good game, and it was a good learning experience for me. Definitely something I have to work on in the future is my clock management, and it's more than fine. So for context, I played on a clock the whole event because I can be slow, and yeah, look, it showed. So it was all good. But it was good again. Kirby was a great opponent, so I lost that one, but it was all right. Like going into towers, never expected to be an upside. And when I need things to go my way, like the no escape rule for those succubus and witches, look, he just beat my roll off. So, and that happens. So it is what it is. So yeah, then game 3, I played into one of my actual nemesis is in Emperor's Children. So the CSM Emperor's Children with Noise Marines and the Terminator Blob. And I played against a guy named Josh, who's a South Australia local, good dude. And it was funny. We sort of we started at turn 3, and we had 2 hours 15 left in the round because we sort of it was on the scouring, and we just sort of did the whole Spider-Man meme of looking at you. We just sort of positioned and waited. And we got to turn 3, and then after that, we was like, nah, this is boring. We'll just then full send into the middle. So great game, went down to the wire, and I just pulled out a narrow win there because the Archon decided to make all the Shadowfield saves. So it made 20 plus in a row.
Oh,
so
what a jackass.
Absolute legend. So good on the Archon for doing that. So yeah, end of my day 2-1. So I was really happy with that. For this event, I sort of didn't have much expectations going in. I just wanted to take it game by game by game and enjoy the company. So yeah, I was really happy with day 1. And yeah, heading into day 2. So we sort of knew we were close, and would you know it, we paired up, Korean Alex and I, for round 4. Let's go.
How'd that game go, guys?
I was so excited. And then it didn't happen.
Yeah. And so to explain, pairings for round 4 went out on the after overnight on Saturday night.
Your first mistake was believing the pairings that went up on Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's your first mistake.
Yeah, so pairings went up, and then something was wrong. At least one game had to be resubmitted, so things got repaired. Cool. That's the story, more or less. So yeah, that meant Sam and Alex didn't end up playing. I'm just going to butt in and say I got I think pretty fortunate repair. So I was lined up to go into Josh McMillan with his Bloody Rose Sisters. Josh McMillan is a rep, a state player for your state. Is that right, Ben? Yeah, for New South Wales.
Yeah, and he just got made a member of Team Australia.
Oh yeah, sweet. And a coach for them in the past, I believe. So yeah,
correct.
So yeah, so I was lined up into him, which I would have a go at. I don't think Sisters like 9 chain cannons getting pointed at them, but he also seemed pretty confident. So I don't know. Well, but we'll never know. Shall I barrel on with the start of my day, guys?
Go for it, buddy.
Get it done,
Cool.
mate. Let's do it.
So yeah, as I'm going through my score sheets, turns out I was playing all the Michaels because I played another Michael. I don't remember this guy's last name. He was an Adelaide local. He was a real friendly guy. He was pretty confident with his Necron, so Silent King, big Scorpet brick, the full shooty Locust Destroyer brick with the 7 of them, the 6 and the Locust Heavy, another individual Heavy Destroyer, couple of units of I think 4 Wraiths, couple of big bricks of Scarabs, small brick of Scarabs, maybe some Tomb Blades, and it had 2 units of Death Marks, and plus he had Illuminor Zeras, which was interesting, sort of an atypical thing, and a couple Chronomancers. that approximately Necrons plus the king, if I didn't mention. He came along and was like, oh yeah, he was quite confident, thought he had a good matchup into Chaos Knights, or thought he would do quite well into my list. I have played Necrons several times with my list. The only one I've had a hiccup with was the network's Nicholas Olsen-Johnson with his 18 score pick plus the king. And in that, I learned you do not try and fight the king, you shoot the king, unless you can like manage to tag him with hit the menhirs with the blood shield so that you don't get hit with a fight last. That's one of the situations you can fight the king. And so yeah, he was saying assassinate's a trap. He was a lovely opponent. I'm just being a bit cheeky because he was a bit cheeky before the game. And I basically was thinking to myself, okay, this is nice. I will show him that it is in fact my list that goes through the Necrons, not the other way around. Yeah, so I took Assassinate for 13, which I was told was a bait. I scored 13. No prisoners because it was a Necron list with big Scarab bricks, and Ruthless Tyranny because I'm playing Chaos Knights. And yeah, I shot some. I punched things. Slaughter Claws and Gatling Cannons both good into all of Scarabs that have 4 wounds and I do minimum 4 damage, or Destroyers. Like you don't get reanimates very well because I kill about 1 destroyer model, which usually doesn't stand up again, and I repeat that until things are gone. The king sort of there was an angle where I could push the king, so I like pushed everything up and got a whole bunch of shots on the king, popped exploding 6 to the head against them and shooting, and the king dropped to 1 wound. I got a bit greedy. He then ran in, got kicked to death by a brigand, which was funny. He then uses his CP to auto explode, kills his own chronomancer, and then yeah, we're about done. We finished with him like with some scarabs on his home and like a pile of random like the remaining stuff of his list and like the death marks on my home objective, and I was sitting in the middle. He scored, it was like an 80 to 97, I think, 98, because he's just sitting there scoring. It doesn't matter. I've got more primary, yada yada. Yeah, another big wing, which was nice. Shall I keep going, guys, with my games, or do you want to cycle around?
Yeah, I was gonna say, hey, you could probably run through your day 2 and day 3. Just
Yeah.
run through them real quick, and then we'll hit the highlights.
Yeah, so I alluded to previously.
Yeah, we don't need the whole rundown of all the lists, just like the rough archetype of it.
So I alluded to translation. I'm going into things too much. Got it. I should go into this one probably a bit more because I came up against Damien, I think Ridgewell. He was the sort of out of nowhere guy who came up and ended up making it to the finals. So spoiler alert, I go down in this game. He had two bricks of full Thunderhammer Stormshield Deathwing, 9 multi-motor attack bikes, and like characters and change and stuff, some troop units. Dark Angels mixed arms, which I see that I heard I got paired into Dark Angels, thought, oh, I'm playing Adam Camilleri, and then I find out, nope, 20 Deathwing. Damn, not good. Went first, did a bit of damage focusing fire, and we played really cagey. He played, I think, defensive the whole tournament. It was a bunch of back and forth. His turn, I think 3, he made a call that I thought was wrong for him, and I think it should have been, if I'd played sensibly, been game losing for him, as he elected to not send enough to one of my guys doing an action on an objective. So Tim the Sorcerer coming in saying Damien is a long-time Dark Angels player who won the meta lottery, which is pretty fair. It was definitely a competent opponent, really good, but compared to the Shark Tank, less well known. But yeah, so he leaves my guy, which lets me finish an action for 4 points and score some primary. So at that point, I'm like, I think I should have this. And then I make a boneheaded move of not really fully keeping track, just going to hit things to try score no prisoners, which lets him pile in, kill one of my guys on an objective that was not needed to be hit. And I ended up losing this 90-91, which is pretty gutting. A funny thing as well, his Deathwing failed their leadership check due to the negatives due to Chaos Knights and couldn't fall back. If he passed that leadership check and got to fall back, he would have lost the point for Oath of Moments as well, and it would have been a tie. So, yep, that's something I can laugh about now at least. So yeah, he was and definitely showing by his performance, a great player. Played KG with his attack bikes, which is the right call. Oh, and the banner, attack bike shooting on death, hitting on 2s is no joke. So yeah, then after having like a difficult thinky game into Deathwing, I peer into in the showdown of the Alexes, I peer into Alex Terrison on his GSC. And so yeah, that was just like, oh goody, more like another Trixie army. But fortunately, I've had a practice rep into GSC, which was really helpful. And so shout out to Alex Terrison. He's a great player, and I think probably was my favorite opponent of the weekend, because it was really clear. It was great. There was good joking. He had a beautifully painted GSC army, like 100+ infantry models, plus characters, plus like 30 bikes, all like he has like dust effects on their boots and stuff. It was awesome. And yeah, he wanted to play on a clock so that he could take 30 minutes on the drop turn, which he took, and it was all good. And he had like loom bands to tell if he had like demo charges on the bikes. It was great. He went first, shuffled a little bit of nothing. I ran all my stuff to the midfield and shot a bit of bikes. And so apparently Terrison's a WTC Team Australia member. So yeah, I did that, and he goes to me, it's like, well, you've chosen violence. So he drops his entire army, kills 4 of my knights on the drop turn, which actually was a bit less than I was expecting, or like it was okay. I tend to find if there's a turn where I lose 4 knights, you can sort of deal with that. That's about the like, it's rough, but we'll make it work. I hit back and I think I killed 2 of his full Neo bricks. He charges my home objective, but I had 2 guys sitting on there, so he doesn't steal it because I kick one of them in combat. And there's a bit of back and forth. I do that. I don't quite put enough into a bike unit, so he regens, falls them back, gets me crossfire and exposed again, kills 2 more knights. I kill some more stuff back. But then turn 4, my turn off OBSEC kicks in, and that's where it's like, okay, that's the game, because GSC without OBSEC no longer really do the janky primary denial thing. We were a little bit into his turn 4. He'd regenerated some guys to steal an objective. Then I go, whoops, sorry, you don't have OBSEC because of my dread table, and which was a bit of a change. So we go back, he redoes his turn. We're a bit tight for time at this point, but it's fine. I can't remember if he uses some of my time or not, but we resolve that. We work out there's not much more to do for my turns. My turn 5, all I do is see if I can make a charge into his home objective to get a 12 versus an 8. That's the game. Yeah. I've talked a bunch, probably too much.
You ended day 2 5-1, correct?
Correct. 5-1 and like really high scoring. Like my lowest score was the 90 in my loss. Everything else was like 90+ because I was getting max Ruthless Tyranny. I dropped 1 point on that in the Damien game as well, which was tragic. If I had 1 guy left alive, I can like run him somewhere as well. But yeah, I was table. I didn't get a turn 5. And like just taking things that will score consistent good points.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and so that had put me in, I believe I was 6th place, then dropped down to 7th based off of a switch around, but it's still middle of pod 2, which is awesome.
Very well done, very well done. And yeah, I'll just recap the rest of my games real quick. So instead of playing into Alex, I played into Imperial Guard and Courtney Hill, so from WA, so shout out to him. Got stomped. That was pretty bad, but that's okay. It was good to get. Yeah, look, Guard do Guard things, so it was fine. Then I played into a beautiful name, Chris. So he was playing Custodes. It was just Dreadnoughts and not Dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts and bikes, and he ran at me pretty hard. I couldn't deal with it all quick enough, and he scored too well, so he won there. And then I played into a beautiful Tower army, so the one you'll probably see on some photos, like with the pink trees and stuff like that. And I got my revenge against Tower, so it was a good game on Vital Intelligence, so I got the win there. And then my last day 3, I'll quickly run through. I won my pod, so woohoo! So I beat Blood Angels, a beautiful dude named PJ from Tasmania, absolute legend. Painted them all as Lamenters. It was all beautiful yellow. So played as Blood Angels, and then I played into another cool dude, Ben. So he was from Victoria. I played at TTS a bunch of times against him, so it was a cool dude, and played some Children of Skies, or Children of Prophecy, and Muscle Shots in no cover. So Eldar versus Drukari Mirror, and just got the narrow win there. So it was a very, very tight game though. Awesome opponent. So yeah, how about you, Korean Alex? You just want to quickly recap, and then we'll actually reveal the results of our draft, and then answer our last questions.
Yeah, so running through my games, after the repair, I went into a Death Guard Demon Engine list played by Adam. He was from Perth, lovely guy. Problem is I used to play that list, so I know how that list works, and I know what that list doesn't like. -1 damage doesn't matter when you're D3 +3. So I sat back and shot him, and then eventually dove on objectives to take everything. It was a good game. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I kind of kept him hemmed in because he's Death Guard and he's slow, and I picked off the fast units, and he doesn't get to come out and score. Then next, my game 5, I believe he's in the chat. I played Alex Iglesias, aka the Greek, who schooled me on how AdMech can score 100 points. I'll use one of my swears here. Holy shit. That list is horrifying. I don't know how I beat that. My wife reminds me that you never win into AdMech, and he kept that streak alive. No, it was, we talked about it a little bit, and we were like, all right, so if I play everything perfectly and get first turn, I maybe have a game. If I go second and I make any sort of mistakes, it's a loss. And I went second and I made a mistake. So that's what happened. And then I went into Patrick Spooner, game 6, and that is Imperial Knights. And it was Armiger spam, which is the scariest version of Imperial Knights for me. This game was, I forget the name of it because I call it Vital Intel, and it's not that. It's the one with the button. You can hit the button.
Data Scry Salvage.
Data Scry Salvage. Did you know Data Scry Salvage is a Hold 2 mission? Because I sure didn't. I did not pay attention to that. Didn't remember that whole game. And because it was game 6 and I was tired, I wasn't tracking my primary very well. And I definitely wasn't tracking my opponents. I didn't know I zeroed him for 2 turns. So I played the entire game thinking I was losing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it my all. Yeah, absolutely lovely guy. Almost played in character. Was great. I killed some Armiger's turn. He gets first turn. Does some damage. I pop out. I shoot things. Or he doesn't do any damage. That was turn 2. He pops out, gets on objectives, starts doing the knight secondary to do actions in the center. I go. I kill a couple Armigers, but I leave one on 1 wound, so it's on an objective, and now he owns it permanently because we remembered that it was sticky objectives and they're obsec. That's a problem. He kills stuff. I dive on him. I'm losing resources faster than he is. I ended the game with, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 models left on the table. Really, it was going to be 6. Again, and I'm killing Armigers, but I'm not killing him fast enough. He's got 3 or 4 Armigers left, and the Paladin that's anchoring this list and handing out rerolls and -1 damage. He then, I was like, all right, it's top of turn 5. I have not tracked. Can we go through score real quick? And I like to do this. Let's see what I need to score. I got second, so I have a lot of ability to score things. Let's do the score sheet real quick on my time. And he goes, all right, cool. You're up 20 points. I go, excuse me. He goes, yeah, you zeroed me on primary for 2 turns and you've never actually not scored primary. I go, oh, okay. I throw a banner up and I walk off every objective, or I sit on objectives and max primary. So it ended up being 90, 67. Let this be a lesson, kids. Track your damn primary. Otherwise, you'll be like me and sweating bullets the whole game. Getting real technical on your movements and then realize you were fine. You didn't need to do
Just
that.
a quick thing. It happens to the best of us. Morozoli in my first pod game was sweating because he left a war dog on like 1 wound on his not quite home objective, his sort of like contestable objective. It was like, oh no, it didn't die to flamers. I need to charge the flamers and the pink horror to try and kill it. And it lives on like 1 or something. He's like, oh no, this is horrible. And I'm just like, dude, why? Pink horrors are obsec, right? And he's like, oh, they're obsec. Happens to the best.
So I end with day 2, 4 and 2, but I'm pretty low scoring, and most of my wins are in the 80-point range. So I end up in pod 17, and I go into guard, the one thing I practiced into. And I go into a guard list that was run by Shannon. He was running a little more creative interpretation of guard than what I'd run into. So notably, not born soldiers. and not as many Russes as I practiced into. So I turn it on, I go kill Russes, and he just doesn't have the firepower to hold me out of his deployment zone. I kill everything but a Chimera by the end of the game. So we go into that, and then I go into my game 8, which was into a lovely gentleman from Tasmania running salamanders, Gravis armor salamanders. So it was really tough. Unfortunately, I outshoot him, and I've learned through the entire event I can just sit back and shoot. So that's what I do. I end up winning my pod, which was really cool. That was my 2 goals were to go at least 4-4 and to win my pod, and I went 6-2 and won my pod. So we were doing good there. But yeah, there's my summary.
Very well done. Great event. Great that you got
Awesome
some good
time.
results and
It was a
learned a
good
lot. So happy days. Cool. And so obviously before the Uprising event, we all did a little draft of guessing who would win the event and like how we'd overall do. And so we have the results published so on the screen right here. So obviously Towsey did pick. Benny Wade did actually pick the winner in Liam Hackett. So he got first
Strong.
overall. And yeah, so I think so, but I don't know. Depending how we ever want to call it, maybe we give it to Benny Wade. We need the old dog to get to win. So maybe Benny Wade got the win.
Hey, get out of here!
Hey, I'm not taking a pity win here. Well, bring that back up on the screen
Bring
for
it
a
back.
sec. Put it back
Mister,
on the screen.
by the way, it's a snake draft. I get to pick 2 in a row. Get out of here with your rigging this. Bring it back. Show us those totals. It's not like you to hide an Excel spreadsheet, Sam. And you're muted. Oh, no, it's fine. Leave him muted. So I believe if we go look down here. Now take it away, Sam.
Yeah, so overall, depending how we ever want to do it, so I had the lowest overall, I had the lowest average, and I had the lowest median, so I guess I win, so screw you guys.
Yeah, it's golf, apparently,
no.
cheater.
So I believe Sam chose the most wrong in the Alex meta game here. Maybe no, actually, the Greek will know in chat. Did you place higher than Terracin or not? But I do believe there, Sam. I might have the highest points there, having picked the 3rd place and the Tau boxing champion of Hayden Walduck. I'll get his name right this time. And then doing okay myself, right?
I mean, well, firstly, Greek Alex scored higher than Terracin, and that's the placing overall. So Liam Hackett's first place overall, and then the numbers are how they placed overall. So, well, so I won the Alex comp, so that's what really matters in all earnest.
It doesn't matter at all.
Second to Taos, I guess.
Yeah,
anyways,
come on, mate.
This was great fun. So, yeah, however you want to pick it, we'll have to decide at a later date. Maybe do a tattoo bet on it. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, so before we wrap things up, we've got some quick fire questions to answer. So from the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tim the Sorcerer, who we met at the event, he joined our trivia team, absolute Chad. We tried our very best, and he was helpful for sure. So, what are your takeaways from the Arcs of Omen meta? So maybe about yourself, Benny Way. What were your takeaways?
Feels like I think it's going to be good. It feels like most factions have a crack, at least in the hands of a skilled general. So, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the balanced data sheet. So, but I do think it's really good. I think it's going to be exciting. I think just having a nice spread of factions at the top of Uprising will make such a difference. I think it honestly depends on how much the top players pivot, if they stay on the factions they're at, and if they're happy, if they do it. Because remember, we've got some big team events coming up, including WTC. There's going to be a bit of a faction change for a few people, I imagine, testing some stuff out. So it'll be interesting, I think.
Kiwi Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. It was really cool to see that clearly Custodia is also pretty good. So I'm happy to see factions going well. It did feel like most anyone or any faction sort of had a shot. Like Tau were doing well, Admech making an appearance. So yeah, So shout out to both the Greek and Ben Warrior for who I played my final game. He finished 8th. Like they were both on AdMech, so 8th and 11th. Like the Eldar doing okay? Are they the ones struggling a bit? Like Harlequins, obviously really good. Space Marine strong. Like yeah, it seems like almost every faction has like definitely some good play, which is it's an awesome place to be, really. Maybe some of the Marine stuff might be a bit, or Marine or Guard. We'll like see how that comes out in the wash, whether that's going to be a problem. But yeah. Ben or
Alex?
Alex, do you guys have something to add on thoughts on the meta?
I think the meta is in a very healthy spot right now. Limited take on Arcs of Omen. Overall, I think every super faction has something that can compete. Even Forces the Hive Mind. Rest in peace. You're not a real super faction anymore.
Yeah, Bugs.
Half of Bugs are dead, but y'all own GSC, so it's fine. There's a good point.
Yeah, just pay like $3,000 to $4,000 redos to buy like 120 Neos and 30 bikes. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. That list will never be bad, I'm sure. The only concern I have, Bugs need to have the boot lifted up off their throat just a little bit. The cult books for Chaos are in a bad spot. T-Sons are going to have a hard time going forward because they were very happy to have Armor of Contempt, and that went away. And they, I think, caught some flack for Flamers that wasn't deserved. I think Death Guard are in a rough spot. I don't think the free equipment's enough because that book still has a speed issue. And that speed issue has not been solved.
They really liked Armor of Contempt, right? And like losing Armor of Contempt but gaining like 5 Plague Marines across a 60 Plague Marine list, that doesn't do it, right?
Doesn't matter. It's because you're still going to struggle to go into the midboard. I think Death Guard is going to have to get real creative. I'm going to look at doing some list building with them with stuff that I own, but I think they're in a rough spot. And then I am very nervous for our impending World Leaders book because I think that book's going to have problems going into Arcs of Omen, because spoiler alert, Arcs is a shooting meta. And you're incentivized to take guns because guns are usually free and guns mean that you can't get hit back, which is what a lot of armies can do now. So overall, I think we're healthy. The cult books and Tyranids are probably going to need some help. I think some of the fear about Guard is a little overblown because I think that book has to skew, and if you skew like I ran into, you can hit games where you can't win. That's where I'm at.
To float a thing on the Guard though, I believe stat check covered. There weren't that many like 6 Russ, like 20 to 30 Cassican, 9 Mortar, like Barbican's Key, Horseboy sort of lists. I don't think there were too many like cookie cutter meta, like what's considered top Guard lists. So maybe put like a pin in that.
I'll be wrong on that, but now we have data, and the data says that they're not doing as great. So
yeah, I guess my point was the data is on not necessarily the boogeyman list, but yeah.
Sure, but you need people to play that list. So until they start playing that's where I'm at there.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see how things are going. But our next question we have is from Werp, and I'll quickly answer this one. So the whole Oceanic Circuit Championships thing, the qualifiers for the World Championship Finals, do the winners of these qualifiers get travel expenses to the finals? So my understanding is the OCC is actually funding those travel to the event. So the people who get to do that get to travel on behalf of the OCC. So it's not Games Workshop is providing the flights and accommodation, but it's the OCC who's paying for that. I don't know, Ben, can you confirm that? Or
so I'm one of the judges for that. So how it's funded is it's something that's worked out through ticket prices and stuff like that. So it's a contribution that's made by the event towards the ultimate prize, which is getting flown from Australia to Atlanta. So.
And Liam Hackett did win one of those prizes for winning Uprising as well. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, that one was straight over there. So, yeah.
Correct. And I believe also from LVO today, like the same happens to Jack Harpster and a couple of the people from Kill Team and Age of Sigmar. So those people are getting funded by FLG to go attend the Atlanta event. So
that's right.
For their respective game systems. So good on them. So
And
yes. And
the one thing I can quickly add about the Oceanic, the acronym thing, is the TO team are great and responsive and open to questions, because I asked Josh Diffie what the ruling was on God Save the Queen or King, now that things are, and got back a quick prompt ruling of its rules as written, whatever monarch is on the coin or note. Yeah, so feel free to reach out to them for rulings.
So, yeah. On that, unfortunately, we're running out of time for everyone. So thank you for all listening to episode 20 of 40K Frontiers. Just send it, an Uprising recap. Join us next week. We hope to have another interview lined up. So stay tuned and take care, everyone.
I want to do a shout out. So there was I'm not going to do the full blurb, but there was an event in Northern Ireland. So we're going to hope to hook up with them and have had some other stuff going on. Yeah. But yeah, so watch out for that.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you have a great day. Take care and see you all next time. Bye-bye.